Right now, somewhere near you, a total stranger will hand over something valuable, trusting a person they have never met will pay them back. We do it 1,000 times a day and never blink. But stop and really think about how strange that is. You are trusting a stranger, and almost no other animal on Earth will ever do it. A chimp will never hand a banana to a chimp from another troop and wait patiently for a fair trade. To them, an outsider is a threat, not a business partner. Yet somehow, our ancestors did exactly that. They learned to trade with outsiders, with strangers, with people from far beyond their own little band. And that one strange habit may have quietly built the entire modern world. Every shop, every market, every economy grew out of it. So here is the puzzle. Trading with a stranger is genuinely dangerous. So why on earth did our ancestors ever start? There is no receipt from the first ever trade. No fossil of a handshake. The moment itself is gone. But the deals our ancestors made left something behind. Solid clues scattered across the ground that we can still dig up today. So let us follow the goods. First, you have to feel just how risky this really was. For almost all of human history, meeting a stranger was terrifying. A person from another group might rob you, or hurt you, or worse. There were no police, no courts, no contracts. If a deal went wrong, there was simply nobody to complain to. So handing a stranger your best tool and just hoping they gave you something fair back was a genuine gamble with your life. Every trade was a leap of pure faith. You had to believe the other person would not simply take your gift and run. And yet, all across the ancient world, people took that leap, again and again and again. Which tells us something huge. Whatever they were getting out of it must have been worth the terrible risk. So what was it? To find out, scientists do not look for the traders. They look for the things that traveled, and some objects are perfect for this. Take obsidian, a beautiful black volcanic glass, sharper than any knife. Obsidian only forms in a few special places, near old volcanoes. So every piece carries a chemical fingerprint of exactly where it came from. That means, when we find a blade of it, we can trace it, like a postmark, all the way back to its home. At a site in Kenya, humans over 300,000 years ago were using obsidian carried from nearly 100 kilometres away. That is far too far for one small band to fetch on a casual walk. That glass changed hands. It was traded. Alongside it, they left lumps of red ochre, a precious pigment. Another prized thing, and carried and swapped far from its source. These are the oldest fingerprints of trade we have ever found, proof that even our earliest ancestors were already moving treasures across the land. And once trade got going, the distances it covered are almost impossible to believe. Tiny seashells, drilled into little beads, have been found deep inland, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest coast. Somebody carried those little shells, hand to hand, across an enormous stretch of dry land, purely because they were beautiful and rare. But the most jaw-dropping example comes from the frozen far north. On a remote Arctic island, archaeologists found blades of obsidian. Its home volcano was 1,500 kilometers away. No single person walked that. Instead, the glass hopped from group to group to group in a giant relay across the whole land. In another case, a shard of volcanic glass was traced across a staggering 4,000 kilometers, passed down an unbroken chain of trust. Think about that. A web of deals, stretching across a whole continent, long before writing, wheels or towns even existed. Now we tend to picture ancient trade as haggling. Two cavemen barking prices and swapping an axe for a fish. But most researchers think it rarely worked like that. The real engine of trade was something far warmer. The gift. Here is the clever part. When you give someone a gift, you quietly hand them a debt. Now they owe you one back. And that invisible debt is precious. It is a reason to meet again. A living thread of connection between two people, or two whole groups. We can still see this in action today. On a scatter of islands in the Pacific, people paddle across dangerous open sea. They travel all that way to exchange nothing but ceremonial shell necklaces and armbands. Objects with no practical use at all. The gifts themselves barely matter. The whole point is the bond. Every exchange renews a lifelong web of friendship and trust. Trade, it turns out, was never really about the stuff. It was about the relationship that the stuff created. If your curious brain is enjoying this trip into the deep past, trade me one tiny thing. A tap on subscribe. Curio brings you one of these every single day. Okay, now for the real reason we started trading. Because underneath all of it lies one deep, powerful reason. Trade was survival insurance. Imagine your whole world is one valley. And one year, the rains fail. The animals leave, the plants wither, and your family begins to starve. If you know nobody beyond your valley, that is the end. You have nowhere to turn, and no one at all to ask for help. But what if for years you had been trading gifts with a group living 2 valleys over? Then you have friends, people who owe you, people who just might take you in and share their food until the hard times finally pass. Every necklace swapped, every blade handed over, was quietly buying something priceless. A safety net woven out of other people. Those trading partners were an insurance policy you could eat. A promise that when disaster struck, you would not face it all alone. So trade was never really a luxury. In a dangerous, unpredictable world, a web of distant friends could be the difference between life and death. But this raises one last problem. If strangers are so dangerous, how do you ever know which stranger to trust? You cannot trade with someone if you have no idea who they are or whether they will honor a single deal. And this may be exactly why our ancestors became obsessed with decorating themselves. Those shell necklaces and painted patterns were not only pretty, they were badges, signals of who you were and which group you belonged to. A stranger wearing familiar ornaments was not really a stranger at all. They were a friend of a friend, part of the same wider web. In a world with no names written down anywhere, these symbols were the very first reputation, the original badge of trust. The bead was not just jewelry. It was the quiet technology that let a dangerous stranger safely become a partner. This web of trust may even be part of the reason we are still here at all. Our cousins, the Neanderthals, were strong, clever, and skilled. But they seem to have moved their materials only short distances. Their world appears to have been smaller, their webs of connection far shorter than our own. We, on the other hand, spun our threads across hundreds and even thousands of kilometres. And when the climate turned harsh and cruel, that one difference may have mattered enormously. The group with more distant friends had more places to run, more people to lean on, more ways to survive a disaster. Trade did not just make us richer, it may have quietly helped make us the last humans left standing. So why did ancient humans start trading? Not for profit, not to get rich, but simply to stay alive. Trade was a piece of pure genius, a way to turn a dangerous stranger into a lifeline. Every gift given built a thread. Every thread was woven into a web. And that web caught us whenever we fell. We can never watch that very first nervous trade take place. It is lost, like the first word and the first fire. But every shard of far-flung obsidian, every shell found far from the sea, is a fossilised handshake. Frozen proof of an ancient act of trust. And that same quiet magic still runs through absolutely everything we do. Every time you hand your money to someone you will never meet again and simply trust that it all works out, you are doing something profoundly ancient. You are keeping alive the oldest deal our species ever made, the one that helped us conquer the world. Stay curious.